Is Ivory Coast's red card politics an own goal for democracy? In the world of football, Ivory Coast has long been a prominent name, a nation famed for producing some of the world's finest players, including Didier Drogba, Yaya Touré, and Sebastian Haller, not to mention its status as one of the top cocoa producers globally. Yet as the nation approaches its presidential election this October, it finds itself embroiled in a political scandal that has caused many to question the health of its democracy. The latest political drama in Ivory Coast revolves around Tidjane Thiam, a former international business leader whose meteoric rise in the world of finance seemed poised to lead him to the country's presidency. However, his path has been abruptly blocked after a court ruling declared that Thiam, who has held French nationality for decades, had lost his Ivorian citizenship and thus his eligibility to run for president in this year's elections. This legal setback for Thiam has highlighted deep-rooted tensions in the country's political system, where questions of identity and nationality are still key issues. Despite the peaceful atmosphere that has prevailed since the devastating civil conflicts of the early 2000s, Thiam's experience is now seen by many as a painful reflection of Ivory Coast's struggles with democratic principles and the legalistic manipulation of national identity for political gain. Thiam's rise and sudden fall at 62, Tidjane Thiam was seen as a symbol of modernity and potential for a brighter future for Ivory Coast. Born into a respected Ivorian family, he had a successful career in global finance, rising to the helm of large corporations like Prudential in the UK and Credit Suisse in Switzerland. In 2022, after spending over 2 decades abroad, Thiam returned to Ivory Coast, where he quickly became a political figure to watch. His timing seemed ideal. The 2025 presidential race, scheduled for October, was shaping up to be a battle of national significance. The incumbent president, Alassane Ouattara, who has served since 2011 and overseen impressive economic growth, is in the final year of his 3rd term. His age, 83, has prompted speculation that he would not run for re-election, and a number of challengers began to emerge from both the ruling party and opposition. Thiam, a former government official who had played a pivotal role in infrastructure, development and economic reform during the 1990s, was expected to lead the opposition Democratic Party of Ivory Coast, PDCI, following the death in 2023 of longtime party leader Henri Konan Bédié. As Thiam secured the PDCI nomination in April 2025, many saw him as the most credible candidate to challenge Ouattara's successor, particularly given his technocratic background and his ability to bring stability and competence to a country that had been marred by years of political turbulence. However, just a week later, Thiam's political future was thrown into jeopardy. The court's ruling a political blow on April 22, 2025. A court in Abidjan ruled that Thiam had automatically lost his Ivorian citizenship when he acquired French nationality decades ago. According to a rarely invoked post-independence law, Ivory Coast does not permit dual nationality under most circumstances, and Thiam's failure to revoke his French citizenship until early 2025 made him ineligible to participate in the presidential election. Thiam's legal team vigorously contested the ruling, arguing that he should not have lost his Ivorian citizenship because his French nationality had been acquired by virtue of his father's heritage, which should not be subject to the same legal constraints. His lawyers also pointed out that Thiam had officially renounced his French nationality in February 2025, thus fulfilling any legal obligations to restore his Ivorian citizenship. Despite these arguments, the court upheld its decision with no avenue for appeal. The ruling now cast a shadow over his political ambitions, and his name was promptly removed from the official list of candidates eligible to run in the October election. The broader implications for Ivory Coast's democracy. Thiam's sudden disqualification has raised broader concerns about the state of democracy in Ivory Coast. The country, which had long struggled with political crises and civil wars between 1999 and 2011, has made considerable progress in recent years. Under Ouattara's leadership, the economy has surged and the country has emerged as a key regional economic powerhouse. However, the political system remains fraught with divisions that continue to mirror the identity-based struggles that plagued Ivory Coast's history. Thiam's disqualification highlights how identity politics, once used by former leaders like Bédié and Gbagbo to justify their exclusion of opponents, is still very much alive in the legal system, even in an era of relative peace. Back In the 1990s and early 2000s, the so-called Ivory law was implemented to block presidential candidates based on the alleged foreign origins of their parents. This law, which became a tool for exclusionary politics, played a key role in the civil wars that devastated the country. In 2007, a long overdue reform finally lifted the restrictions on candidates of foreign descent, and in 2016, the country's new constitution explicitly ended the requirement that presidential candidates' parents be born in Ivory Coast. Yet, as Thiam's case shows, the specter of identity politics still lingers. The ruling against Thiam's candidacy has fueled widespread disillusionment among Ivorians, many of whom see it as yet another example of political manipulation designed to maintain the status quo. This legal twist, which in some ways mirrors the tactics used against Ouattara in the past, raises serious questions about the fairness and inclusiveness of the upcoming election. The larger regional context: a growing crisis of confidence, Ivory Coast's current political struggle also reflects a larger trend across West Africa. In recent years, several countries in the region have seen military coups ousting elected leaders, including Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. These coups are partly fueled by discontent among young populations who feel that democracy is not delivering on its promises. Ivory Coast, a nation with a population where a significant proportion is under 35, faces the risk of similar disillusionment. The presence of an unelected strongman government in the region has led to anti-politics rhetoric gaining traction, particularly among young people who see established political elites as corrupt or unresponsive to their needs. Ivory Coast, as one of the economic engines of the region and a major player in the broader Francophone world, could have provided a beacon of democratic success. But instead, the current political crisis is serving to deepen skepticism about the future of democracy in the country. A glimmer of hope for democratic reform? Despite the challenges, there have been recent positive developments in some of Ivory Coast's West African neighbors. In 2023, Liberia held a peaceful election in which the incumbent government was peacefully voted out of office. In Senegal and Ghana, incumbent governments were similarly defeated through free and fair elections. These examples have raised hopes that Ivory Coast, too, could serve as a model of democratic choice. However, Thiam's disqualification and the looming specter of a heavily biased election in Ivory Coast have dimmed these hopes. Many Ivorians now fear that they will be faced with a political system that is less about democratic choice and more about entrenched power struggles. As the country moves toward the October elections, many wonder whether this political crisis will lead to a broader reckoning about the nature of Ivory Coast's democracy. Thiam's legal challenges may yet be resolved through political compromise, but the enduring legacy of identity politics could leave lasting scars on the nation's democratic institutions. For now, Ivorians and the international community alike must watch closely to see how this crucial moment in the country's history unfolds. Thank you for watching Yellow Pepper TV, your source for trusted news and insights. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay informed.